Hey, thanks for watching this video. So this video today is about how to study for your insurance exam. Who is this for? This is for people who are actually probably in the process. Either you are starting to study and you're starting to realize that, maybe the study strategies I used to use aren't quite working. I'm not really quite understanding the concepts. Or maybe you've already taken the exam and you need to retake it again. So my name is Dr. Jocelyn Stewart. I am a health and life insurance agent. And this channel is all about helping agents to understand what it's like to be an agent, but also to help them to pass their exam so they can become an agent and start developing their skills and going on with their future careers. So this video is divided up into 3 parts. One is just like a general overview question that I'm going to statement to provide to everybody. The second one is about things that I would suggest for you as you're getting started. And the third is talking about what you should do as you are studying. And then actually there's 4 parts. And the next one is like the final review as you're right before you're taking an exam. What are the things that you're going to do? So let's start off with the general statement. I'm going to tell you something that you might be surprised about. It might be hard. Okay? It might be hard. Insurance isn't something that a lot of people talk about. Some of the concepts you're going to really understand and they're going to be easy because you've had experience in them, or they're just stuff that people just know off the top of their head. Other parts are going to be challenging, and that's perfectly fine. When I first started studying, I have a PhD in health administration, and my first exam that I took was the health exam. And I was reading it, and I was like, oh, first chapter. I was like, that's fine, that's cool. And then I was like, second chapter. I was like, wow. Kind of know this, but I'm not getting quite right. And then I said, oh gosh, I have to stop because I really have to concentrate on this, right? So some of you might be starting off and say, oh gosh, it's got to be easy. And you start getting challenged a little bit. That's all right. Take a pause, stop, restart it, and just make sure, do you understand that it might be hard? And for those that are like, I didn't experience that at all, girl. It was hard from the start. That's perfectly fine. When I first started studying for the life exam, I struggled a lot more than I did with the health just because it was something that a lot of the stuff I just was not familiar with. So let's go on to the first section. The first section is getting started. The first thing that you need to do is make sure that you're studying in a distraction-free zone. Okay, turn off the TV, social media, don't watch YouTube videos. You need to be as distraction-free as you can. Now, I train agents to get their health insurance or their life insurance exam and passing their exams. Now, one of the things that I would often hear was, I just don't have enough time. And I tell people this, okay, you are going to have to make a sacrifice. You're going to make a little bit of a sacrifice in order to get a big reward, which is getting your license. A little small sacrifice to get a big reward. So what does that mean? So sometimes you're going to have to go and study when others are asleep. Maybe that's early in the morning. You might need to get up early in the morning. You might need to do it when people are in the bed. You might have to sacrifice doing things that you enjoy doing for just a little while. We're not talking about a whole semester. We're just talking about some people it's just a few days, other people it's just a few weeks. Just make a little bit of a sacrifice. Ask for some help. Ask for someone, hey, can I drop the kids off for a couple of hours? Go somewhere else and go to a coffee shop or take people out and say, hey, you go off and do some fun stuff and mom is going to sit here. Mom or daddy's going to sit here and I'm actually going to study. Leave the house because guess what? There's all sorts of distractions in the house. You have to prioritize. The laundry isn't a priority, right? Eating some food is a priority. Organizing your desk, going through your emails, updating your social media accounts, those are not important. To prioritize what's important and make sure you do that. If you are like me, I do like to listen to music. It just has a tendency, I like a little background noise. Just listen to classical music, nothing with words in it, classical music. I even listen to stuff that raindrops and stuff of that nature. Now I do find that make sure you don't do it in the bed so you end up falling asleep. But that also makes another point. Make sure that you are comfortable, but not too comfortable. Do not study in the bed. Do not study in the bed. Do not study laying on a couch. get up, sit at the kitchen table. If you don't have a table or something like that, sit in a chair. Don't lay down on the couch, because the more relaxed you are, what happens? This isn't the most exciting stuff. This ain't Harry Potter. Stuff is dry and boring. And what's going to happen is you start falling asleep. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to time yourself, because guess what? Everybody studies differently. Everybody's mind only digests a certain amount of information, and then your mind starts to wander, and you quit inputting the information. So what I'd like you to do is one day when you feel I'm motivated, I've got enough sleep, I'm distraction free, and I'm going to start studying. And I want you to do a timer. Time it and study as long as you can. Now, once you start feeling a little fatigued, not like, oh, I really, really want to get on Facebook, not like that. But when you're just like, man, I just don't remember what I just read, stop. Look at the clock and see how long you have studied. That's your maximum time, because that's the maximum that you're going to do. And you're going to push yourself to try to hit that time. Take a break, about 15 minutes, then come back. Don't take 30, maybe 30 minutes at the most. Don't take 2-hour breaks and then come back. If you're going to do a block of time, do that block of time, study, then take a break. The next thing I want you to do is get all the practice tests and watch these videos. You can send me an email, and I'd be glad to send you a list of YouTube videos and other websites that I give to my trainees for those that want to get started. So just the chapter 1, just the basic information that is mostly found in the first chapter, whether or not whatever program that you're using, just those basic health insurance stuff. Again, send me an email. I'll be glad to send you that document for you to get started. I myself like videos, obviously. I'm on YouTube. And I also sometimes like to read stuff as well. So just having lots of different ways to listen to stuff. And what was nice is that I had the document, and then when I was just studying, I would just click on the YouTube video on my tablet and it popped up, and I could just listen to it as I was doing my last minute studying. The next one is give yourself enough time to study, but not too much time. I really would prefer that you really try to push it to 2 weeks, because honestly, after that, you're not going to really retain too much. But what does that mean? That means that you need to spend about 2 weeks prioritizing. Now, I'm not saying that you got to use your vacation time, but that means in the evening while everybody else is watching TV, that might mean that you have to go into another room by yourself and study. But that's what I said, a small sacrifice. The longer you wait, the less likely you're going to remember this information. People who are waiting a month, 2-3 months, the material's just gone. This isn't a midterm or a final exam. This is the next state exam. You need to focus on it as quickly as you can, get it done, study as hard as you can, and then go take the exam. The next thing I want you to do is think about what you're going to be doing. I'm going to talk about what you should be doing. Suggestions, I didn't say should. Let's look about stuff that you should be doing while you're studying. Things that I've seen a lot of people just really mess up. The first thing that I want you to avoid doing is that I want you to avoid highlighting. I'll reach out to people and I say, how are things coming? And they'll say, oh, look, it's going great. Look how much my PDF or my booklet or whatever is highlighted. And I say, how do you distinguish what's important and what's not important? Everything's highlighted. They're like, oh, okay. But I got different colors. I'm like, no. That's too much time. Your focus should be just on getting the information and taking this exam and passing and moving on. You color coding this, if you're going to highlight the word or just a phrase. People have so much stuff. If your stuff looks more highlighted than it doesn't, it should be just 1 or 2 words. Just highlight a little bit. It shouldn't look like a rainbow. Okay. The second thing is focus on the areas you do not know. A lot of this stuff you're going to know. By bar none, you're going to know a lot of this stuff. What we tend to do as humans is that we tend to review and review and review. Oh, I know this. And you end up just kind of studying the stuff you know because it makes you feel good. I mean, no one wants to sit here and struggle with this stuff. I know, I don't. But then when they go take the exam, what happens is that they say to me, yeah, I struggled with this part. And I say, well, did you spend most of your time studying on this part that you struggled on? No, I really focused on this. Okay, well, there we go. So let's redirect our thoughts and make sure that we are studying the stuff that you do not know. Okay. Now, how do I do that? Right? As I'm going through the concepts, I will take, I actually like to use a PDF. And the reason why I like to use a PDF, and you can always just scan it or, download a copy. And a lot of stuff, a lot, especially the online stuff, comes as PDF. I take the little snippet tool on my computer, snippet, and then I copy and paste it into like a Google Docs. So this way it can go with me wherever I want to. And then all I do is copy and paste those particular parts that I don't know. So when it comes down to the last part of my studying where I need to just focus on the stuff that I don't know, then I have it all right there and I start repeating it over again, looking over and over and again. The other stuff I don't even really look at. After I've been through it the first time, I understand it pretty well. I don't even look at it anymore. The next thing is develop something to help you to remember, like a mnemonic, a phrase, a song, a sequence of numbers to help you to remember stuff. I still use the mnemonic, even though it's changed. My very eager mother just served us 9 pickles to do the planets in the solar system in order. You'll do the same thing, 30, 90, 20, 60, A, B, C, D, whatever it is that you want to do. Try to find some way for those really hard concepts. Instead of reviewing them over and over again, figure out some way to make a rhyme or some mnemonic, which is just taking the letters and doing all kind of stuff, and making something that will help you to learn that stuff. Because sometimes, here's the deal, sometimes you just need to know the information. Like you just need to know what the number is. What's the contestability period? 2 years, okay? That's all you need to know. You don't really need to know the theory behind all this kind of stuff. You just need to know the stuff, okay? You just need to know enough to pass the exam. The next thing that the biggest mistake that I see people to do, and this is probably the most important thing I'm going to talk about, is that you need to review, because most of you are going to be doing something where you're you have a practice exam questions online. You need to review all of the questions and answers. This is what typically happens. Let me know if this sounds like you. You get to the end of the chapter or whatever the section is, and you decide, and you're taking the practice test, and you take the exam, you take the test, the practice quiz, and it says on the end, do you want to review all the questions or do you want to review just the ones that you missed? And then to save on time, or because because we're just used to that. Say, oh, no, show me the ones that I missed. Okay. Then what happens is that you look and you go, okay, that's why I missed those. But what are you missing? You're missing the ones that you got right, not because you knew it, because you happened to guess right. So you say this concept here, let's say, if I'm talking about grace period, and you get grace period right, but you get claim forms wrong, and you happen to get grace period right just because you happen to guess right. Do you really know grace period, or you just happen to guess right? So if it comes up again, when you take the exam, what's going to happen? You're going to get it wrong. So this is what I suggest people to do. Before you take a quiz, I want you just to write down, get a sheet of paper and start out write one. When you read the question and you're answering it, I want you to give it 3 things. I want you to either give it a check mark, like, yeah, I really understand this. A question mark, like, I'm not quite sure. Or an X, a dead wrong. Like, I don't know this at all. Everyone that's an X should be on that second review, even if you got it right, because you are not confident. When people tell me, but I did, no, and I don't know, I said, it's because you didn't understand it. No tricks involved in this, and I'll talk about this in the second video about how these questions are worded. There are no tricks. Okay. Well, there are certain things that they do, but they're not out to try to trick you. If you get it wrong, it's because you didn't know it. And if you just skip it because you happen to get it right, then you won't know it. So you want to get the ones that you have an X on. And then you might be surprised when you go back and review and you're like, gosh, I gave this a check mark. What happened? Sometimes it's, I really don't know the content. Maybe I do need to add that to my list of things to study for. Or, you know what? I missed the question. I didn't quite understand the question. Maybe I need to take a little more time to read the question more thoroughly. So when you're studying, you need to really be analyzing the questions, everything about it, not just going through as fast as you can. I had a student one time who finished the stuff and she just was rushing through it. It was almost like she enjoyed telling people how fast she got through it. But you know what? She didn't retain anything. And so by the time she took the exam, she didn't pass the exam. You have got to take the time to retain the information. Take the time. The next one is I want you to ask for help. Most of you are going to be taking it with somebody, whether or not you're going to ask for help from someone like me, or you have a trainer, or you have an upline or somebody, a friend, or a group that you're part of. Ask for help. If you don't understand something, say, can someone explain this to me? And have a conversation with somebody. The next thing that you need to do is to connect the concepts to things that happen in real life. Okay. Let's talk about the types of contracts. So, aleatory contract, I looked it up. And the term is an agreement concerned with an uncertain event that provides for unequal treatment, transfer of value between the parties. Okay. So, what do? You sit there and you review and you go, agreement concerned with an uncertain event. I know what that word is, but okay, we need to connect it to something. That to myself means nothing. Right? Of course, I know what it means now, but when you're first studying, you're like, this is just weird. This is like just crazy stuff. So what do you need to do? Connect it to something that's real life. Whether or not you want to just something as simple, right? So contract adhesion. Someone said, tape it or leave it. It's like tape to somebody. Take it or leave it. Tape it or leave it. I was like, oh, I didn't take that one. Someone else did it. That's great. Something to connect the information. It's adhesion, tape. You can remember that. Aleatory. Okay, say, well, that's life insurance, right? If I happen to pay for a premium and it's a term insurance and I pay for it for 6 months and I happen to die and I have $100,000, I have not put in $100,000 into that premiums. The insurance company, as long as it's, legal, they will pay out $100,000. Uncertain event. I didn't know I was going to die. No one knows. We don't get a letter in the mail from God or Jesus and says, hey, tomorrow's the day. You better clean it up, right? Unequal transfer, right? So now the insurance company is paying for you to get $100,000, right? That's unequal. Aleatory. Think of something, some people think of other words. That's the only one I can remember. It's just aleatory in insurance. Maybe AI, right? So maybe you think about something like that. Aleatory. Adhesion. I know the adhesion one is a tape. So think about, that's how I do when I start thinking about and trying to train people. It's like, you've got to connect it to something. But then the opposite could be true as well. I can pay 20 years on it and it's a term in policy. And after 20 years, and I don't convert it. What happens? I die 20 years and 1 month. I am out of all the premiums I paid. And the insurance company gets to keep all of that money. So connect it with something. If you're struggling with something, connect it with something so you can understand that concept better. The next one is consider studying with others if it's beneficiary. So sometimes people want to, especially if you're going and you're starting a new job and everybody's studying for their examination. And they get together and they're studying. And then I pop into the Zoom meeting and they're talking about dogs or what do they do this weekend? I'm like, how is this beneficial to any of you guys? Now, I understand that sometimes you need some time to take a break and powwow with other people. But if it's going too long, if you know everybody's backstory, you know where they went to, how long they went, you knew everything that they ate for the dinner, and you know what their kids' first and last names is and all their pets' names and stuff, that's too much. This ain't the playground. We are trying to make sure that we're doing study buddies. So what's nice about having a study buddy is that you have somebody that can help you out if you need it. If you need somebody to tell you something, like how are you remembering aleatory? but also as a way of, especially if you're off hours, hey, anybody want to study at Saturday at 2 p.m.? Because that's some accountability. Because if not, I'm going to sit on the couch all day. Please, somebody, let's just get together, go open up a Zoom meeting or whatever, Discord, something, whatever they do these days. Now we're on to the last part. So let's talk a bit. We're going to, figure out some way to make sure that we have enough time to study. We talked about things that we are going to use, some tips and strategies to actually study. I'm not highlighting our whole doggone book. Now let's talk about that final push. We're about to take the exam. We're talking about a couple of days before you're taking the exam, not the morning of. That's too long. You don't give yourself enough time. This is about 2 or 3 days before you take the exam. You need to start doing your final review. The first thing is you've got that document with the snippets. Just focus on that. Again, focus on areas that you don't know. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to focus on the concepts that are the heaviest on the exam. And every state has this document that if you just Google contents on the Georgia State License Exam, they will come up, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, here's Pearson Views. This is Georgia. Now, I did this mistake when I first started, because when I first started training agents, I was mainly training them to be Medicare agents. So what did I focus on? Medicare. And then I start realizing, let me look at this darn thing, and let me see what is it actually about. So if you look on here, let's just say we're looking at the Georgia Health Insurance Exam. There's 80 questions, and it gives you the concepts. It tells you what the percentage, basically the number. The higher the number the questions are. So 80 questions. If we look on here, what was I doing wrong? 3 questions was about Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. 3 questions. So if I spend a day looking over and studying about Medicaid or Medicare or Social Security, I am screwed. What I need to do is focus on the heavier parts. And the heaviest one typically is these 2, which is the state laws. Unfortunately, they typically come at the end. So you're sort of fatigued. That's why you need to give yourself enough time. This is the final push. We're not final pushing this the day before, or we're final pushing this or last hoorah 3 days before. So I need to study for this one and then study this part. Unfortunately, a lot of times these end up at the end because it is sort of hard. You do need to lay down the foundation before you start talking about all of this other stuff. But if you are focusing on group insurance, and there's 14 of those, you're focusing on Medicare and Medicaid because you're like, well, I'm going to be a Medicare agent. You'll get plenty of stuff about all of these different plans and more information about all these other concepts. We need to focus on those biggest parts here. And each state is different. That's why you need to look up each one. Because I know like Ohio has some questions about dental and stuff like that. This is what you need to look at for every state and every exam that you're going to take, and make sure that you are looking at the right ones. Okay. The next thing that you're going to do is you are going to take as many practice exams as you can outside of whatever system that you're using. So when I was training agents, we used AD Banker. And when I still train people, but I'm just talking about when I was doing this as part of my job, as part of my full-time job, was that they'd come back after they did not pass the exam, and I'd say, I gave you a whole bunch. Which one did you use? Well, I just studied AD Banker. I told you not to. I told you not to. Because here's the deal. None of these programs write it. Some are a little bit better than others. Some of the questions are going to be a little bit, I think, better designed than other ones are. I'm not here to promote any particular type of program that you want to. I think you can be successful whichever one you use if you use some of these strategies. The problem is that people weren't using the other stuff. Well, I just did the 80 banker how many times. They were questions I didn't notice before. They were worded differently. Yes, they will be. None of these practice exams that you're taking, none of these are going to be exactly worded like they are. You need to see the different ways in which they are designed over and over and over again. Think about it like this. Again, this is understanding. If you understand the concept, I can throw something at you. I may describe it a little bit differently, but if you really know it, then it doesn't matter. If I said, I am going to cook an egg for breakfast and I'm going to fry it up, and you go, okay, what breakfast, let's do this. What breakfast food, typically you crack it open and you fry it in a pan. People say an egg. Okay, now, if I came back and said, what breakfast food comes from a chicken? And all you've seen is cracked it open, and fried it in a pan, you'd be like, I don't know what that is, right? But if you saw something else that said, hey, an egg is a common breakfast food. Eggs come from chickens. So you'll know it. That's why it's like, what happens is that agents focus on that one and say, well, all I saw was cracked an egg. They threw out this chicken thing. They're trying to confuse me. And I'm like, none of the programs out there are going to give you everything exactly the way that it needs to be. So you need to study as many different resources. And I tell you what, most of the stuff is free. You just got to Google it. You just got to spend a little time to Google it. Okay, the next thing I want you to do is study how I learned how to study when I was an undergrad. So when I was going to get I was in my major classes. I was so excited. I didn't have to take Anthropology 101 and all these other classes. And we had no multiple choice test. They were small classes, and I guess they were just like to be cruel. And it was 5 questions, and they were essay questions. So what would happen is if you showed up for an exam and you didn't know what one of the questions was, you're like, shoot, that's automatic 80. But I had to learn how to study a little bit differently. So what I would do is that I would write down a concept, and then I would take the time to write. This is that making that connection between here and the writing and stuff like that. So let's go back to contracts. If I would write down, or you can type it up as you're going through, we're just thinking about big concepts. What are the 4 types of contracts? Now, and then I'm going to put it away. And then when it comes time to study, I'm going to use that as basically like my last ditch effort to see what do I know. I'm going to pull it out. I'm not going to read it and say it. I'm going to write it down. 4 types of contracts, aleatory, and then write the stuff down. I'm going to write in my little definition that I know, if you're writing the answer. Because what happens is that people look at it and and I would ask them as they were going through and they're struggling, I'd say, what are the 4 types of contracts? I know it. I've read it. I did that part right. I said, yes, you sort of know it. You don't really know it well enough. I want you to really, really know it. Because guess what happens? We go back again to, I'm going to get rid of the stuff that I already know. So if you can remember unilateral, adhesion, aleatory, but you can't remember the 4th one, then you know that the first 3 is okay. You can put that off to the side. And then you're going to only focus on that one that you didn't miss. The one that you missed. And the very last thing is this thing right here is a note card. It can be a little bit bigger, can be a little harder. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about how I use this note card here for the next section, which is how to take your insurance exam. You are going to get a note card that's about this size. You can get a sheet of paper, something like that. And this, both sides, is going to include the stuff that you just cannot, for some odd reason, you can't remember. And I'll talk to you about how we're going to use this note card and the how to take your insurance exam video on the next one. So a bit of a long video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this sort of content, please give it a thumbs up. Again, consider the notes will have my email address. Consider writing to me, asking me for that first sets of videos. Reach out to me if you want to ask me some questions about anything related to being an insurance agent, or if you need some help with studying for your insurance exam. Best of luck to you. I know you all can do it. This old dinosaur, I'm not that old, but if this old dinosaur can do it, I know you can too. Take care. Happy studying and see you next time. Bye.